Hello everyone, I'm Jensen Denoyes here for a new and exciting episode of Here on You, and today we are with our new co-host, Maritsa Barros. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Please share about yourself.
Sure, as you mentioned, my name is Maritsa Barros. I grew up in Brockton, Massachusetts. I'm a true educator at heart, which is why I'm super excited to be a part of this program. Thank you so much.
Well, it's an honor to have you here.
Thank you.
Today's topic is on overcoming fear. Nelson Mandela once said, "The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear." As people, it is very difficult to be calm and collective during tense moments. We'll be like, "Oh my goodness, what do I do?" And we get overwhelmed. But once you get to learn to overcome your fears effectively, you'll be doing everything at your optimum. Whether fight or flight, physical rushes do occur, so we can still own for the moment and remain in control by overcoming fear.
Overcoming fear requires positive and unburdened thinking, which convinces us that with self-confidence, we can master any situation in life. Convincing yourself of your abilities is the greatest favor you can do for yourself.
Indeed.
It will give you the power to face and overcome any obstacles you may face in life. To truly understand the importance of this topic, we've asked our guests their point of views on overcoming fear in their lives.
Our first guests are a couple of students from Silver Lake High School in Kingston, Massachusetts. They are part of the leadership class taught by Tony Pina. This course teaches the high school students leadership skills, team building, civic awareness, and helps them realize their full potential. They'll share their thoughts on the importance of overcoming fear in leadership.
And for those of you who care about managing your finances, stay tuned, because we have financial guru and life coach Belinda Rosenblum, author of the critically acclaimed book, Self-Worth to Net Worth. And she will discuss the tools needed to overcome fear in relations to your finances.
Finally, we also interviewed Bridgewater, Massachusetts fireman Lieutenant Bob Mencinelli, who discusses why overcoming fear is so important in his line of work. You definitely don't want to miss that.
Definitely not. To kick us off, one of the questions we asked the Silver Lake High School students is, what types of fear are there in leadership? Here's what they had to say.
I think a fear is standing out and not being accepted by others, because everyone has different opinions and you might be worried about being judged by others and coming out of your comfort zones and afraid of failure and not being successful.
No one's put in a leadership position all at once with all these pressures on their head, even though that's kind of what people feel like. So it helps to sort of take on smaller responsibilities in an area that you really care about and sort of build yourself up. So you think, okay, I can do this, I can take care of that. And you just sort of get bigger and bigger, and you can get more involved with more people and sort of get yourself comfortable with it.
You can overcome the fear of leadership by being confident in your abilities and yourself, and by surrounding yourself with people who have the same goals and interests in you, who will be a positive impact on you.
When you're afraid of leadership, you can't lead, because like Mr. Pina says, fear is paralyzing and it keeps you from being able to do what you'd really like to. So if you can sort of get past it, then you can do more and you can really help people and get connected with them, and you can help them do things that they wouldn't be able to do either.
The benefits of overcoming your fears of leadership are you're making good choices for yourself and you're leading others in the right direction, and you can be a good role model for others and they can look up to you because you'll be making good choices and overcoming your fears.
That was a very astonishing interview with the Silver Lake students. Awesome work, Tony Pina, with the class and your students.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But I would like to know, Maritsa, what's your takeaway from this interview?
Well, I think the students did a great job of picking up the areas where fear comes into play with leadership.
Oh, absolutely.
It's one particular area you don't necessarily think about fear, because leadership is something that everyone is encouraged to take upon.
Exactly.
Becoming a leader builds great characteristics personally and professionally. So it's not something you may really think about fear. But the moment you step out as a leader, you recognize, as the students pointed out,
Yes.
you have to be willing to stand alone. You have to be willing to stand with a sense of confidence, of
Right.
authority. You have to be willing to be held accountable. And that, I think, is a major factor of fear, because none of us want to make a mistake, right? All of us are afraid of doing things wrong.
Exactly.
Though we know that sometimes one of the best ways to learn, it can be that fear factor to stop you from stepping up to be a leader.
Absolutely. And one thing I got from this interview is that it shows that moving forward is more important than being afraid.
Right.
And as a leader, certain tools such as reason and reflection is important for you to help you overcome fear.
Yes.
And this will determine whether you move forward or not.
Absolutely.
But one thing I did like a lot, I admired a lot, was the fact that they mentioned about reward.
Yes.
Once they receive the reward, not only do they work hard for it, but they also learn to appreciate it.
Right, right. So their recognition of the reward that may come from being a leader, from overcoming this fear,
Exactly.
has now allowed them to not be paralyzed by this fear.
Exactly. Fascinating work. FDR once said, "Only thing we have to fear is fear itself." However, there are many things to be afraid of. Some of you may be afraid of clowns or reindeers. Or some of you may have the fear with money. Herein you interview financial guru Belinda Rosenblum, who shares how to face financial fears head on and also tells how we can eventually get over them.
Sure, it's such a great question, because people really lose sight of the fact that they even have fears with money, because it's become so familiar and comfortable to them. So they just think that that's how life has to be. They have to live with this base level of fear, uncertainty, shame, guilt. I mean, it's stress, worry, all of these things have become their comfort zone. And what ends up happening is that they don't realize that there are specific things they can do to work through that fear and to really face it, and to instead shift from that fear to more of a place of love and confidence and really strength and power around their money. It's just so much of the time, that's all they know. And so even though the familiar is actually pretty uncomfortable, people often rather stay comfortable and unhappy instead of getting to a place where they can get a little uncomfortable to be truly happy. And so as you step into owning your money and step into that sense of power, that's what's possible for you.
Maritsa, do you actually believe there's fear in money?
You know, I never really thought about fear when it comes to money.
Right.
Right. I think, like many other people, money is not something I'm afraid of.
No.
Right. We all want money. We all want to make good money. But to think about the fear factors that come along in the journey to securing your finances is pretty incredible. You know, and I think the big aha moment for me in this particular clip was that we are our own factors of fear.
Right.
You know, we really mentally keep ourselves from breaking from the comfort zone.
Exactly.
I really took from this particular interview the sense of comfort versus happiness.
Right.
Right. So you want to be happy, but you don't want to be in an uncomfortable setting.
Exactly.
So it's pretty interesting to recognize what you're familiar with, though is not leading you to that happy place, may be the exact fear factor keeping you from your finances.
Exactly. And I totally agree. She mentioned that many people want to be comfortable but not happy. Instead, you should be uncomfortable and be truly happy.
Right.
And one of the best ways to overcome your fears is recognizing your comfort zone. And as far as for the finance, one of the best ways to overcome fear of finance is educating yourself, such as reading Belinda's Self-Worth, Self-Net Worth. And also just recognizing the whole concept of money. And from there, you'll be able to eliminate your fears. In addition, you'll use techniques such as affirmation and visualization.
Right. Yes, she had some really great points, and there's a lot you can take away from her book, so definitely check that out.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Hero in You is not only the name of this show, it is also a TV program that highlights the heroes who serve in our communities every day. Just like superheroes, Bridgewater Fire Department's firemen have risked their lives by running into burning buildings to save others whose lives are in danger. When they see someone is trapped, they will do whatever it takes to get them out, no matter what. This is why this educational TV program believes firefighters like Lieutenant Bob Mancinelli are also heroes. Here's what he had to say about overcoming fear in his line of work.
Well, some of the fears we have to overcome is when we enter a burning building. Most people, when a building's on fire, leave. We're going into the burning building, so we have to put that out of our mind and think of the safety first of ourselves as well as the people we're trying to assist. It's just something that you do over years. You just, as I said, a lot of people are leaving the building, and we put in a situation that we have to go in. So we just think beyond that picture. We rely on our training and our the proper tools that we've been given to do the job, as well as some people sometimes think that we might not be all there due to that they're leaving. We just focus on trying to do our job 99% of the time. We're doing our job, and just we look beyond it. It's a very hard thing to describe, but we just look to do the job, and then after the job we then say, wow, we put ourselves in that situation. It is an exciting job. I've been doing this for 27 years, and when I first started the job, I was a little nervous what was going to happen. We handle medicals, we do the fire aspect, and as time goes on, it just gets easier and easier. It comes natural. You just do your job, and you don't worry about the fear that you put in.
Overcoming fear teaches us to stay calm and positive. Especially in the modern world, there are scores of negative incidents happening around us. While Belinda Rosenblum has taught us the importance of overcoming fear of money, she also realized it's not the only thing we should learn to overcome. Especially after her dreadful experience at the tragic Boston Marathon bombing, Belinda learned to recognize her fear, yet move forward effectively during a high level of threat and terror. Also, Lieutenant Bob Mancinelli is not only a hero to the town of Bridgewater, but he is also a hero to the United States of America after his intense experience at the ground zero shortly following 9/11. But before we hear Mancinelli's 9/11 experience, Belinda will share how she had to find the hero in her at the Boston Marathon bombing.
Just to backtrack a little bit for our viewers here, is that my husband was running in the marathon. And this was his first marathon. It was a really big deal. He had never run more than 13 miles ever because he actually gotten some injuries. And so he was facing his own fears even that day to be embarking that morning in Hopkinton, planning on crossing the finish line. And it was all about how do I cross the finish line? And so ironic that he actually never did. So that day everything was proceeding as normal. I saw him at the 1 mile mark, at the 10 mile mark, at the 19 mile mark, and then the plan was, okay, we'll see you at the finish line. And I was driving there and was less than a mile away, and I called the friend who actually was in an office building right above the finish line. And I ended up calling him, and we spoke literally minutes after everything had happened, before it even hit the press. Right, and I said, oh my God, and I started looking on my phone and my iPad, and there was nothing about what had just happened with these 2 bombs that went off. And he was like, stop in your tracks, don't come any closer. Something really bad is happening in Boston right now. I have goosebumps just thinking about it. And I really just had to be with that fear in that moment to kind of accept it and embrace it and be like, it's gonna be okay, life's gonna be okay. And it took hours because the cell phone signals were so messed up in the whole Boston area. So, it happened middle of the afternoon, and it probably took us 4 hours before we actually were able to get through to him, like when he could get a phone that could then contact us. And he ran all the way to mile 25 before they stopped him. We were basically wandering the streets of Brookline, stopping in I guess what would be like shelters almost for runners. Like they made temples and hotels and churches and all that stuff into shelters to help the runners. And so long story short, we ended up finding him and picking him up about 4 hours later. And so and I swear I've never been so happy to hear his voice, when he called me in that moment. This example is a good experience of facing fear in the eye. It's like there was nothing I could do about it, right? And oftentimes when we're afraid of something, there isn't anything real there. It's almost like people have tons of fears around money, and it's kind of like the monster in the closet when you're a kid. Like, you need to open up the closet and turn on the light and see that there's nothing there. I think in this case there was a real fear, terror that something was happening, and all I could do was be with it in the moment, like face it head on, and then overcome it to get to the other side, to say like, it'll be okay. And that's where the acceptance and the love and the grounding really comes into play, that I didn't want to, kind of like I said around money, right? Like not avoiding it, but stepping into an awareness and an action around it. So we sat in the car a little while, and then we just started looking. We started taking whatever actions we could to help us move forward and not feel so helpless about it. Because really there's so much we can do around our fears that we don't give ourselves the power. We relinquish it. And I don't think it has to be that way. I want everybody watching to realize they have the power to face their fears, and they have the power to overcome their fears.
Me, myself, and one of the other gentlemen here, we got sent to Ground Zero approximately 3 days after the bombings. You know, the height of the news was going on. We didn't know what our safety was going to be at. When we got down to Ground Zero, it was, it was overcoming the devastation we saw, and you were in harm's way at all times because you didn't know what was going to happen next. You just focused on being there to help people, and it just, as the days became hours became days, and days became weeks, it just went away. Your goal was to assist people down there and help out with the devastation. And it just, you didn't think of the fear after that point.
Yes, the 9/11 and Boston bombing is a tragedy. But where were you when 9/11 happened?
When 9/11 hit, I was actually in college. I believe it might have been my freshman year in college, and I was in my residence hall. But it was definitely something of terror.
Right.
Something that definitely infused new fear
Right.
of just public safety,
Exactly.
I think, in all of us. How about you? Where were you when 9/11 hit?
Oh, I remember vividly. I was in high school, Cardinal Spellman, and they had all of us assembled together at the auditorium, and they announced that there was a terror attack that happened in New York in the Pentagon. It was hard to believe and hard to grasp, and we had thought about uncertainties of the future, but as time progressed, we learned to overcome our fears and move forward.
Right. I think when we think about these tragic incidents like 9/11 and the Boston Marathon bombing, we think about fear in its most literal sense.
Exactly.
It's the fear that we know best, the fear that it's an immediate harm to our physical being, to our families, to our communities. And I think the big thing to take away from the reflections shared by both Belinda and Lieutenant Mancinelli is the fact that it's bigger than us.
Exactly.
We have to really combat this immediate sense of fear to get to the greater sense of the community, which is the safety of all of us. So when he runs into a burning building, he knows it's bigger than him. When Belinda is working with her family and friends to put their heads together about the proper steps to take next to finding her husband, she understands that it's bigger than her, it's bigger than him. So sometimes we just have to, face it,
and overcome the fear.
Absolutely.
And I like the fact that Belinda mentioned that with this example of overcoming fear, a literal sense, it's just an example of acceptance, love, and being grounded.
Yes.
Yeah, but one thing that's really great about the 9/11, the Boston bombing, just the unity. Everyone came together to help each other out, from the fire department, the ambulance, the police station, just civilians helping one another out.
Right.
It ties perfectly well with Bob Mancinelli, you just mentioned. He said that when he went to the Ground Zero, he knew that his goal was to help those who were in need,
Right.
and that was his dedication.
Right.
And with goal and dedication, that also helps us to overcome our fears.
Absolutely. And we can even tie it back to leadership, back to finances.
Absolutely.
The fact of the matter here, the big takeaway is you do not have to face your fears alone.
No. Speaking of community, I think it's time for us to show the clip of our social that we had at Bridgewater State University with the students.
Yes, you took some time to meet with students here at Bridgewater State, and
Exactly.
I'd love to see what you all discussed. Let's check it out.
Fear is false evidence appearing real. and it almost literally makes us look at our opponent as weak. Fear is ultimately weak. It's not, but it feels so strong and overpowering to us. But what it ultimately is it's a fault. It's a fake. So it's almost just like I want to look at everything I was afraid of and just stand up against it and be like, what now? So that was really interesting.
Actually, how I overcome my fear as well, like what Aaron said. I pray also, and every time I pray and talk to God, I feel better about. I feel the anxiousness and the fears, like they go away. So that's another way that I can overcome my fears, by looking on the bright side of things, changing my mentality, and praying. And fears are not so in depth. Like sometimes they are as simple as talking in front of a big group of people. So I'm scared of talking in front of people as well. It does help to actually do the things that you're afraid of and get out of your comfort zone. Yeah. Exactly. I used to be really shy and timid, and I don't know if I still look that way, but I'm actually more I am more confident and more comfortable talking to people and leading groups. Like I direct films now. I help produce. Yeah. And I actually, when I'm put in those positions, I think that I do well at it, and I'm growing as a person. So I definitely think people should just do the fear, like just go at it head on, and they can overcome those fears. Like,
try to overcome your fear, you know what I mean, and make sure sometimes you try to do the thing that you're most afraid of, and and make sure you got determination, because in life determination is the wake-up call to the human will.
Challenging times in the beginning of 2013, and I look back and those times were just bad, but things have gotten so much better since December and January of 2013, and better times are ahead. So just think positive, So.
I really enjoyed the social. It was really astonishing. One thing that caught my attention was the fact that Aaron and Smith were able to create an acronym for FEAR, false evidence appearing real.
Yes, false evidence appearing real. I think it was incredible to watch Aaron have his moment of clarity when he heard that.
Yes.
And Smith sharing that seems as though that's something that he's been able to embody himself.
Right.
So once you've recognized that what you're afraid of is not real, you're more than empowered to actually address that fear and have the confidence as you're walking into facing that fear.
Indeed. And one thing that was very inspiring was Rachel's testimony of her experience of fear, that she had to overcome her fear this year, and then by overcoming it, she received a lot of rewards in her life. She's evolved as a person, personal growth, and also her leadership skills has been amazing.
Absolutely.
And I think it's a really great example for youngsters to understand.
Absolutely. I think Rachel's example of overcoming fear has really taken that acronym to the literal sense, right?
Exactly.
She is putting herself into situations, as she expressed, that may feel uncomfortable to her, but it's continuing to allow her to grow.
Exactly.
And what's truly inspiring is actually her fear of not succeeding.
Right.
So
Mediocrity.
she knows that she will not lead a life of mediocrity, and I think that is definitely an inspiring factor for other youth to definitely take on as inspiration.
Indeed. In conclusion, we've learned the importance of overcoming fear. The final example this television program wants to fully present is coming from comic book issue number 20 of Green Lantern. This issue seems to really grasp the quote of Nelson Mandela: "The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear." This quote connects to the Green Lantern number 20, Wrath of the First Lantern. Hal Jordan, for his astonishing ability to overcome fear, is chosen to be the Green Lantern of Sector 2814 by the dying alien Green Lantern, Abin Sur. He does well as a Green Lantern for years. But when he lets the evils of the universe make him angry and fearful, the evil entity Parallax consumes his soul and takes control of his body. This entity makes Jordan do unspeakable things to his friends in the Corps. But he fights against the entity and regains control of his body. Hal Jordan fights the Manhunters, risks his life to rescue the Lanterns that lost faith in him. In earning back their faith, Hal would face his own fears in fighting the Red Lanterns, Soul Keeper of the Orange Lantern, and Atrocitus. Jordan even helps the once evil Sinestro overcome his own fear in fighting his own Corps to gain back his home world of Karagar. It is because of Jordan's amazing ability to overcome his fears that he is able to regain the faith of his dear friends and even inspire evil to do right. He is even able to leave a great legacy behind for future generations due to his great ability of overcoming fear. Ladies and gentlemen, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but more so a spirit of courage, just so you can overcome your fears and triumph. Now that's how you find the hero in you. If you want to share how you're overcoming your fears, please follow us on Twitter at HeroInYou, and also check out our website, www.heroinyou.com. Also, like us on our new Facebook page, www.facebook.com/TheHeroInYou.
I am Maritsa Barros.
And I'm Jensen Denoyes, here for a new and exciting episode of Hero in You. And yes, you can find the hero in you.